So just a few hours ago, Konami decided to drop the biggest content update to Master Duel yet. We got ourselves new packs, new art types, new cosmetics, new events, new UI updates, and of course, a brand new animation for skill drain. Really? And of course, the most fun update, at least in my opinion, is the brand new structure deck they've added, and of course the subject of today's video, Cyberdarks. So here's today's deck list. Now just a reminder before I go through the list, if you're enjoying today's video, finding it useful in any way, or just want to see more content like this, make sure to let me know by leaving a like on today's video and considering subscribing to the channel down below. I will be making a video on the new sword style art type tomorrow, so if you're interested in any of that stuff, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. Alright, let's get into the deck list. So as per normal, I won't be going through every individual card in this deck list right now, as it's much easier for me to go through them, as I just play them during the gameplay. But I will give you a brief rundown on what this deck is trying to do. So the whole purpose of this deck is to summon the brand new boss monster, Cyberdark End Dragon. This card is just insane. So first of all, it has 5,000 attack, so it's very hard to beat over. And secondly, this card is unaffected by any of your opponent's activated effects, meaning unless they have a kaiju or just some really big monster, it's likely they won't be able to deal with this thing at all. So there are two methods of summoning this card. First of all, you have the standard fusion summon of just Cyberdark Dragon plus Cyberdark End Dragon, but we don't really use that often in this deck. What we use is we get to special summon this card by attributing one level 10 or lower Cyberdark fusion monster equipped with Cyber End Dragon, which in this case will be our Cyberdarkness Dragon equipped with our Cyber End Dragon. Now, how we get this monster out on the board in the first place, you're probably going to have to wait till the gameplay to see that, as it's kind of a bit of a long process. But just to give you a brief rundown, you're going to be using these brand new spell cards, which will just send a buttload of these new Cyberdark monsters straight to the graveyard, so then you can activate your Cyberdark Chimera to add Power Bond to hand, which can then fusion summon it straight out to the board. Alright guys, that's going to do it for the decklist portion of the video. I do have to warn you before we get into the gameplay that if you are planning to play this deck, remember, it's not the most competitive deck out there. It's definitely more of a for fun, maybe meme deck. It's not a terrible deck, you'll easily get wins with it, but if you're looking to climb the ladder quickly, I wouldn't suggest this deck at all. But it is a very fun deck, so don't let that put you off, and it's also fairly cheap to make considering most of it is just in the structure deck already. Anyway, let's get into the gameplay. So today I have 3 replays to show you guys, all of which are sadly extremely similar, as well this deck list is very one-dimensional in its playstyle. Whether you're going first or you're going second, generally you're just doing the same thing, trying to summon your boss monster, which is done via a very similar method every time. Alright. So this is going to be the most optimal play for the deck. I'll tell you why in a minute why the other 2 replays are slightly different, but this one is the most optimal play. So first we're going to summon our Core. Core is going to search for our Cybernetic Horizon. Horizon sends one of your machines from hand to the graveyard and one from deck to the graveyard. Normally you'd send the Herz from the deck to the graveyard and one of your Cyberdarks from hand, but in this case we drew the Herz so we can just send it from here. And we're also going to send our Cyberdark Chimera. This is because when Chimera is sent to the graveyard, it can send another Cyberdark to the graveyard, and we send Herz because when Herz is sent, you can add a Cyber Dragon to hand. So in this case we search for Claw. Oh yeah, because this card also, by the way, once you do that, searches for a Cyberdark as well. It's this card is a very stacked card in what it does. It also, as you're about to see, or as you saw, it also sends a Cyber End Dragon from the extra deck to the graveyard. So it sends 2 monsters, one from hand, one from deck, then one from the extra deck, and searches for a card. It's a very stacked card. Alright, so like I said, Chimera sends one to the graveyard, and Herz adds a Cyber Dragon to hand. From here we activate Claw's effect, which discards to add one of our Cyberdark spells to hand. We add our Cyberdark Realm. Realm is a search for a Cyberdark with a name different from ones in the graveyard. So in this case we search for a Cyberdark Cannon because we don't have one in the graveyard yet. Cannon, we can then use its effect to discard itself to add our Chimera. We can activate this card's effect, which lets us do an extra normal summon of a Cyberdark. Summoning Chimera, he then activates a Max C. We can just pull by the grave. But one of the cool things about this deck is it actually doesn't really care that much about things like Nibiru or even Max C, because we don't actually do that much special summoning. It's pretty easy to play around those cards. Alright. We're going to use our Chimera's effect to discard a spell or trap card to search for a power bond. Now the reason we did this even though we had a power bond in hand is if you use its effect to do so, the power bond can then use the graveyard as material as well. We then link summon off into a Union Carrier. Now keep in mind, when you activate, I think it's this card, it's either this card or the other Cyberdark card, when you activate it, you won't be able to do any other special summoning except for machines for the entirety of the turn. So keep that in mind. That's the reason that we summon things like Union Carrier and stuff, because it just happens to be a machine. Also because it creates a pretty nasty log. And when I say you can't special summon monsters, I mean you can't special summon from the extra deck. Alright, so Power Bond's going to summon out our big Cyberdarkness Dragon. You can then equip my 4000 attack monster, and then, because we have the 2 monsters on board, we can tribute them to special summon out our big boss monster, Cyberdark End Dragon. Union Carrier's effect is going to target this monster and equip the Dragon Buster straight from the deck. Now, if you don't know what this card does, it's a card that I personally think might be needed for a ban. It's disgusting. When this card's on the board, equipped to a monster, your opponent can't use their extra deck for the rest of the turn, or just can't use their extra deck at all. So it's a very nasty card, and it's very easy to get equipped to your monster in this deck, because if you get this card in the graveyard, which you can do by link summoning out your Protector Whelp, but when you do get this card in the graveyard, you can activate your Cyber End Dragon, or your Cyberdark End Dragon, sorry, to equip it straight to itself, because that's the effect, one of its effects, as you're about to see. It can just equip cards from the graveyard to itself once per turn. And of course, because the Union Carrier can just equip it straight from the deck and happens to be a machine, it's a pretty easy lock to make. Alright. Now our opponent has, this is a really interesting out to it. He had a cross out Designator, which you can then choose the Dragon Buster Whelp to negate its effect. That means that he can actually use his extra deck now. Very interesting out to it, but he had one. Now as you can see though from this board that it's actually not the strongest board around. We have no actual removal from this end board. Sometimes you can get the trap card, which is good removal in this deck list, which you'll see in one of the other replays. But as you can see, we've just kind of got this Buster Whelp, so if your opponent actually activates like a Cosmic Cyclone, MST, Lightning Storm or anything that just wipes your back row, you just kind of rely on this big boss monster. That's all you've got. The opponent does a bunch of stuff, he then tries to use this monster's effect. We're just gonna imperm that. I'm not really sure what the best card is to imperm during the Phantom Knight or Burning Abyss combo. I think it's this one, I'm not really sure. In this case, he conceded from it, so it must have been a pretty good imperm. Alright, so the other 2 replays, I made sure specifically not to summon that Whelp, as if I summon the Whelp, generally it just means my opponent will just concede, so that was kind of a rare case, because generally when you see the Whelp, if you don't have removal for it or a way to out it, it's pretty rough. It's really hard to play through it. Especially when it's equipped to a boss monster as strong as this one. Now the main reason I think this deck is extremely more meme-worthy than actually meta-worthy is it's very susceptible to things like Ash Blossom or even things like Effect Veiler, and you can't really play through them all that well. If anyone decides to Effect Veiler this or Imperm this, your turn just ends. You can't really play through that. You can kind of play through if they do it to like your core and you just happen to have a good hand, but it's generally this deck is extremely susceptible to disruption, hence we're running things like Call by the Grave in here. Alright, so we activate our Cyberdark Realm, searching for a Cannon. Cannon, discarding to search for a Chimera. It's generally good to search for these cards whenever you can because they can put more resources in the graveyard. Once again, sending ourselves a Chimera and a Herz. Searching for a Cyber Dragon. Chimera sending the other Cyberdark. Core going to be searching for Invasion. Normally you wouldn't search for Invasion, but in this case we happen to have Cyberdark Realm, and we also happen to be able to get a hold of our Horizon, so we might as well just search for our one-of. Then we'll summon our Chimera, discarding a spell, searching for a Power Bond. This time link summoning into Seeger. So normally, the best play would be summon Union Carrier and search for the other card, but it's it generally just makes the opponent concede not very exciting replays, so Seeger's another option. This is probably the card you'd summon if you're going second with this deck, because then you can give it a nice little attack buff to your boss monster. So power bond out our Darkness Dragon, equip our thing, and then tribute it off to summon out our Cyber End Dragon, or Cyberdark End Dragon. He equips a Herz. Now the cool thing about equipping Herz in this situation is because it's Cyberdark Invasion, which allows you to send one of your equipped cards to the graveyard to destroy one of your opponent's cards, is it gets to send the Herz, which when sent to the graveyard, can add the core straight back to your hand. So really cool little interaction there. Which is why we're generally equipping Herz to this monster. Alright, he activates this dude, searches for the fusion spell. And at this point, I'm just waiting for him to activate that field spell so I can negate it by destroying it, because it happens to be a continuous effect. Well, not continuous, but you get what I mean. Destroying the card, destroying the field spell, which negates it. And he can't use it again for the rest of the turn, so even if he had another one, wouldn't matter. Aim the core back to hand for follow-up plays on the following turn. This man has Fusion Destiny, because of course he does, as everyone is going to have from now on. Better get used to this card. Here is his Destroyer, Enforcer, Cringelord. He swings it to my monster. I give my monster an attack buff before it goes. Then tributes himself to destroy my trap card, and then during the start of my turn, it resummons itself. Very cool card. Alright, we activate our core, this time searching for our Cyber Eternal. Cyber Eternal is basically a monster born in this deck for your fusion monsters. Now keep in mind, this is very important. When you activate your Cyber Eternal, it will give you the option of targeting Cyber End Dragon. You cannot summon this, it won't let you summon it. You can only summon monsters that you've previously fully summoned already, because that's how fusion summoning works. You can't just summon one of your extra deck monsters that's in the graveyard unless you've already done the summon first. So in this case, the only card we can summon is Cyberdarkness Dragon. Don't target the Cyber End Dragon, target this one. I'm not sure why you'd want to anyway, but just keep that in mind. So summon back this guy can then equip a monster to it. He knows what this monster's effect is, which this monster, whenever my opponent activates a card effect, we can tribute one of the equip spells to then destroy the monster and negate the effect. So he decides to pop my monster before I can use this effect. But by that point, we had our quick play spell in the grave, which can banish itself to protect my monster from destruction. And then he's like, yeah, he's pretty doomed. Alright, final replay. Now this one I think you would have seen is as a meme video already, maybe, because I'm going to upload them both at the same time. Because this is a pretty funny duel. At least I thought it was pretty amusing. I think my opponent didn't really, hasn't played against Cyber Dragon before. Alright, so we're using our Realm, searching for a Cyberdark Cannon. Cannon discarding itself, searching for Chimera. Core, going to be searching for Cyber Emergency. Emergency, searching for Herz. Use our Horizon, sending the Herz, sending the Chimera. Adding the Claw. Sending the one from the extra deck, and then Herz and Chimera, sending 2 cards, adding card to hand. Adding a Cyber Dragon. By the way, generally the card you want to send with Chimera when you're sending it to the graveyard, you want to send one of your 3 normal Cyberdark monsters, the ones that you've only got one of in the deck. But you don't really use them all that often, they're just kind of there, so send them whenever you can. They do all have some effects, there's kind of reason to run one of each, and you can also use them to fusion summon out your boy over here, this dude here. But yeah, generally you don't use them all that often, so they're generally the best ones to send. Especially considering you want to have your claws and your other cards to be able to fill up your graveyard later on and do other searches. Alright, Chimera, sending a spell card, adding Power Bond. Fusion summoning into Seeker. Again, remember, this should normally be a Union carrier. In this case, I decide to summon this. My opponent will actually play the game. Power Bond, going to be sending 5, summoning out Cyberdarkness Dragon. Equipping the monster, and then tributing itself to summon out the Cyberdark End Dragon. which then equips the Herz. Activates Foolish Burial, sending a monster, searching for Faris. Now from this point on, I'm pretty sure I know which card I want to destroy with my Invasion now. I'm waiting for him to equip his little dude to it. Because that's generally how you defeat heroes most of the time. So I'm ignoring all this, he can do whatever he wants, I don't give half a shit. I am waiting for him to activate Faris, which he does. As soon as he activates Faris, equips it with this dude, now I know which card I want to destroy. Activates this, I activate my Invasion. Now my card is actually non-target, so even if he activates this card's effect, he can't activate it like in response to me targeting it, because my card just destroys. You guys know what non-targeting does by now. So I pop his card, and from here he is now trying to figure out an out to this monster, which he thinks he has one. This man thinks he has one. The Herz only back the core. He summons out Crusader. Then Crusader adds back a Destiny hero. So now he has enough monsters on board to sorry, he searches for the Honest Neos first. And then he has enough monsters on board to summon out Dread Decimator. And he thinks, damn, 3,000 wonder attack? This card's only got 5,000, but he has the Honest in hand. So he swings into my monster, activates his effect, and we have Seeger. Plus 2,100 attack on our monster. So although his monster goes up to 6,000, whatever it goes up to, wasn't quite enough. And from there we have Cyberdark Core, searching for the Quick Play spell again. Quick Play spell summons out the properly summoned Cyber End thing, whatever it is from before, Cyberdarkness, which equips the End, tributes it, and there we have our Cyber End Dragon. So we have two of them, our Cyberdark End Dragon. Alright, so that's going to do it for today's replays. I hope you guys enjoyed them. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Remember, I will be making a Sword Soul video tomorrow, so if you're interested in that, make sure you're subbed, and then you'll see that. Alright guys, thank you guys for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Laters.
Hey, big brother, can I watch SpongeBob? Shut up, Mokuba. I'm busy flagging YouTube videos to compensate for the fact that I have an extremely small penis. Oh.